SPYR.
Welcome back to Started Now. I'm your host, Jeff Sarris. This is the show where I talk to entrepreneurs and creatives of all types to reveal the unexpected paths to where they are today. Today, my guest is Joel Reid. Joel is a visual designer, a brand guy. He has his own business, but he's also jumped into Web3 with Clubbie Bears as his project to sort of blend the two worlds, Web2 and Web3, together under one umbrella. We start this conversation actually talking about becoming a better person. And this is something that we haven't, like on this show, we being me and the guests, we haven't really touched on like this. And I'm really excited to share it with you because his insight into improving who he is to better help others, his close family and people around him, it's really great. Like I love that we dove into that, and it makes me want to do more sort of around that topic. But without further ado, my conversation with Joel Reid. Just sort of briefly, how would you encapsulate who you are right now? Like who Joel is? And it's okay that we use your name, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
totally. Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm like, it takes like, I think I'm one layer undoxed for certain people. So it's like, it's whatever. And, I'm a professional visual designer. So it's, my moniker outside of Web3 is Joel the Reid, and so it's my name, But a lot of people in the gaming and now Web3 world know me as NormtheUnicorn, so it's whatever.
Gotcha.
Who I am right now, I would say, and I don't know if you know much about Enneagram or anything like that. So I'm big on the Enneagram personality stuff like that. So I am a 4 through and through. So my answers are going to be tiered that way. But
could you explain that a little bit?
What do you mean?
So the Enneagram and sort of what that means.
Yeah. So the Enneagram is a personality type, kind of like if you've heard of like Myers-Briggs or anything like that. And so the Enneagram, it has 9 types, thus the name Ennea, meaning 9, Enneagram. And you have 9 types. They're broken into 3 different sections. 1, let's see, 8, 9s, 1s are the gut feeling, anger triad. The 2, 3s, 4s are the heart, like emotional triad, which would be, I think it's anger, shame, and then 5, 6, 7 are the head, intellectual, head thinking, anxiety thing. And so like, it sounds negative, but that's how they kind of pinpoint it, because everyone for whatever reason kind of knows like what you go to when you're like triggered or whatever. So it's like when you explain it that way, they're like, oh yeah, okay. And so 4 being in kind of the heart, romantic, emotional, artist type of thing. And so, but I preface that by saying like who I am right now, I'm probably the happiest I've ever been, the healthiest I've ever been, like mentally, emotionally, and just doing something that I love right now. Family's great, life is great, work is great, just at a place in my life where I'm closer to 40 than I've ever been, just turned 39. And so it's like one of those things where you get to a place in life where you've done a lot of work in therapy and you think, wow, I really like being here. I really like who I am. So I know that's like really vague, but like who I am now is probably just one word, just happy, just really happy. So
that's awesome. When would you say is the point where you could say that?
Oh, so my big like mental, emotional, like health journey probably started when I was around 10 years ago, when I was around 28. And right before I, was going to turn 30, and we were, my wife was pregnant with our first child, and just started thinking of like, things happen throughout your life that cause these like convergent moments, and you think maybe I should like grow up a little bit, or maybe I should, and so it started then, and so I probably didn't get to this kind of, truthfully, this space that I'm in now 2 years ago, maybe. So
That's awesome.
it was a good journey, good long journey of like working through things, sitting in front of a therapist going, all right, I've done everything I could internally. Let's get some external help to like kind of pick apart things and help me. And so
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's good 10-year journey. Probably it's been about 2 years that I've felt like um really, which again is really awesome to be able to say, yeah, I feel like I've always wanted to feel, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
You know, you have these like internal things where you're like, man, I think that I would like to be this way, or you know, or at least be what's the perceived this way, right?
Mhm.
And so like being at that place, I think, oh yeah. And so I'm probably more confident than ever, and you know, things like that, just because when you're settled in yourself, it's easy to kind of live genuinely, right?
Mhm.
Because insecurities like really can be sniffed out really quickly, right? So people try to project, you know, I always say, and I think it sounds confusing, but hopefully it makes sense, but I always say insecurities have to be proven. And so people are always trying to prove their insecurities, and by conveying the opposite, right? So like if they're insecure about something, they usually try to portray demonstratively the opposite of that. And so I tell my son, he's like, why do they do that? Or why is this? I'm like, remember, insecurities have to be proven. So they probably feel this way. So give them a little bit of grace, or give them a little bit of empathy, because internally they're probably experiencing this. So they express the opposite. So yeah. So that's a long-winded question or answer, but yeah.
No, that's perfect. So you are to the point of happy. You have that feeling. What was that sort of spark within to dive deeper? Like what was the feeling maybe that you were noting?
Back, yeah, like when I was 28
Yeah,
kind of
sort of what
thing.
started you on the journey, because it sounds like it's such an impactful journey for you. So I sort of, if
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
okay with that, I'd love to unpack just a little
Yeah,
bit about
absolutely.
it.
I'm free to talk about anything. So I could tell you exactly the moment I'm a natural creative, meaning I am right brain, like totally right brain. So I've always been that way ever since I was a kid, just creative. And so for whatever reason, and I don't know, and I know I have a lot of creative friends who are, not everybody's creative, but hopefully you know what I mean by like right brain creative. So I have a lot of friends who are this way, and it seems to be, I was laughing because somebody said this the other day, but it seems to be the standard of, for whatever reason, by anytime between after 11:30 or 12:30, your brain kicks back up. And it's just like it just runs back up, and you just start solving problems and creating things, stuff like that.
And we're
So
talking at night, right?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
At night, you know, because you're working and you're creative during the day, and then like it slows down and you get into bed. And if you don't go to bed before 11:30, your brain will kick right back up, you know. I've created some of the best stuff between the hours of 11:30 and 2:30
Uh-huh.
a.m. No, I can't do that anymore, but I used to do that when I was younger. 2:30 used to be my like average bedtime. But I was laying in bed one night. My wife was pregnant, and I started learning about different. I can tell you who it was. It was, I don't know if you ever heard of Brene Brown.
Mhm.
She has amazing TED Talks, but I learned this. She has this term called shame resilience. So I thought was very interesting. So I started listening to her TED Talks, grabbed a couple of her books, was reading through it, and started kicking around these concepts and understanding this idea that when you have children, and this is kind of a terrifying thought, but when you have children, you give them what you have, good, bad, or indifferent, whether you like it or not. And so you get like they get what you give them. And so it's like they get the intentional and they get the unintentional. And I remember laying in bed one night, and I had this like, I don't know if it was like a half dream, or, you know, like this like creative vision or whatever. But I was in this like coffee shop, sitting across the table from my, at the time, 18-year-old son, who wasn't even born yet at the time, but he's 18 in his vision, and he's crying, and he is expressing how hard it's been to deal with the things that he got from me. And it like, I mean, I got broke out into cold sweats, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't want this, whatever this was, to be true. And so I'll do whatever work I need to to, and you're not perfect, and you also don't want to do the thing where it's like I learned I had like a sociology minor and studied addictions and things like that, and you don't want to do the thing where when people have parents who are addicted to substances, they make this promise to themselves that I'll never be like that, and then they ultimately become that, right? So I didn't want to do that either, and so it's like I need help, to someone outside to help guide so I can make decisions. And so that kind of sparked the journey of this, like, kind of like, really, because, like, again, the way I'm wired, I'm very driven, and I'm very driven towards perfection, even though perfection doesn't exist. And so I'm always tinkering, always tweaking, always, things like that. Probably what makes me a great visual designer, because I'm always looking at something going, it could be better. and so I already had that anyway. And so when that happened, or when I had that experience, I thought, man, I'm willing to do whatever it takes so that when my son is 18, the things that I'd given him, or at least I learned, and this is what really was freeing, I learned how to, if ever I make a mistake, to go and apologize or clean up the mess or whatever, because I'm not going to be perfect, right? But it does matter if I do something that hurts his feelings, or I do something incorrectly, or I don't manage my emotions well in the moment, to go to him and be able to say, hey, I didn't do this well. This is not what I intended. Will you forgive me? Things like that. Because really good relationships are, by and large, just you getting really good at apologizing, pretty much. And so, like, your best relationships are two people who just really are good at saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's that communication. It's open, genuine
Exactly.
communication, not just sort of, let's pretend for a little bit. It's like, no, this happened. We're going to talk about it, kind of thing.
Right. Exactly. Right. So that's what kind of sparked it. And so I did whatever I could with the means that I had, which was, thankfully, we're blessed enough that I found a really great therapist, and did a lot of therapy through that, and stuff like, and I have a phenomenal wife. And so she's always like, she's a good sounding board, or someone that I can talk to and talk through things with. And, she's really good at, she has a big bag of velvet bricks. And so she can say, hey, that wasn't awesome, but she's not going to, like, make me feel like a piece of crap either, so that helps.
I like velvet bricks. I actually haven't come across that before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So just how would you sort of define that just a little bit?
Like it hurts, but it's not going to harm you.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
I like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it can almost maybe wake you up from whatever it is that you don't see. But it's
Exactly.
not biting. It's not a jab. It's this
Right.
this this strong sort of hit across the face for what it is.
Yeah,
Just like,
exactly.
oh yeah, I did this kind of
It's
thing.
like it didn't leave a mark, but you felt it hit you,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So were there tools then that you sort of had found that were working for you? Was it specifically like the therapy, the talking through with someone, or the things that you've applied to your life that sort of have helped you get to where you are?
Yeah. The biggest things are, for me at least, and this is only me personally, because everyone's different, but for me personally, it was my internal dialogue, because shame was a big thing that I, not only developed as a child, but also carried into my adulthood. And so, like, things would happen. Well, the thing with shame that's so bad is that it never tells the truth. And the other thing with shame is that, let's say I did, like, let's say if I wasn't healthy, and let's go back to my younger years. Let's say if I made a mistake and it disappointed someone, or it was made someone unhappy. And let's take something very simple, for example. Let's say I spilled a drink, right? Everybody spills drinks. But if you're riddled with shame, your internal dialogue, shame tells you you are the mistake, you're the mess up, and nobody that's worth their weight in gold, or nobody that's worth anything, spills drinks. So the fact that you spilled a drink, you must not be worth anything, or you must not be as good as fill in the blank. And so, as simple as something as spilling a drink, going to get paper towels and clean it up and going, whoops, my bad, would turn into this dark hole of, I'm scum of the earth. Why do I even exist? Right. And so that's really hard to deal with. And I've sat across from many people who kind of have that, they struggle with that. That's a real thing. And so what that journey and did, but and the other thing that's hard about that is that people around you, because we can't hear each other's internal dialogues or thoughts until they come out of our mouth. People around you, your friends, your family, things like that, they get really confused at why a simple accident sent you into a 3-day like hole, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then the things that do come out of your mouth are, I'm worthless, I'm not good enough, I'm not, and people are like, bro, it's just a drink, like it's fine, like we'll clean it up, it's, things like that. But when your demeanor changes and that like irradiates, like, not irradiates, but radiates off of you, people are like, what's going on? It's fine, it's like everybody spills drinks. And so like it was those type of things that a therapist was able to sit across from me and say, let's work on your internal dialogue. What do you tell yourself when a mistake happens? What do you tell yourself when something bad happens? What do you tell yourself when nothing bad happens, but you perceive it as wrong? Like all those things, right? And so like those are the things that you learn to, and it takes one day at a time. You take a tool, it's like the never ending, screw and a bolt, or like bolt on a screw or something. It's like one day, turn it once, it's like, then we'll come back the next day and we'll try it again. And so like those are the things that really help me. And then of course, like I love people, like getting to know people, like the way they work and things like that. And so it helps when I find people like Brene Brown who've come from experiences and have education and write books or podcast. I love podcasts and things like that. And so that's why this is like really fun for me. It's like, what? This is awesome. I love podcasts. And so it's things like that that you learn that you then can carry on. And then when you find, the beautiful thing about it is that when you find something that's valuable like that, then you can transfer it. You can also give it away. And so one of the things that was like I realized, because also like once you're with something for a while, you forget what you've learned, right? You develop. And so it's like one time, this is a funny example, but like I was explaining something to somebody, I was like, yeah, I took the 25-pound dumbbells and they were like, oh, flex. And I was like, flex? I was like, it's 25 pounds. But if you like, I grew up as a gym rat, like 25 pounds used to be heavy, but then it wasn't. And so me talking about it but then you're talking to people who are like, that's their like main like workout weight, it's like, and so they're like, oh wow, 25 pounds, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And so in the same respect, when you're growing and living and going through your day to day, you learn something, you apply it, and you start to work it into your life. After a few years, you forget that it was a revelation to you, right? And so one of the things I realized is we had this 20 to 25-year-old group coming to our house for a couple of years. And I started noticing these like things in them. And so one night I asked them, I was like, hey, like, raise your hand if your parents taught you how to manage your emotions well. Nobody raised their hand. Awkward silence, crickets. And it's like, oh, and then that was a revelation for me for that, because then I realized my parents didn't do that. Who's like there's only like, you have to be really what's emotionally aware to transfer something like that to your children, right? And so like that was a revelation. I thought, well, now that I know it, like, and talk to my wife, it's like, let's be those parents, let's be those parents who do that. And so those are some examples of like tools and things like that I learned. And I think that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it definitely does. And I mean, I love the place this is all coming from too. Like this is you helping people. This is making sure that you're giving your children the tools to be the person you want to be without
Right.
Maybe putting them inside a certain box. It's like,
Exactly.
I didn't have these tools. I want to pass these on as best I can. And that's
Exactly.
yeah, it's so commendable. I like that.
And it's really freeing too when you realize, and a lot of people don't realize this surprisingly, but when you realize you can't control people, you'll never control people. And so it's really freeing actually when you don't have an agenda, but you have something of value and you can say, here, I have this, I'll give it to you. Do whatever you want to with it. But at least I'll give it to you. And if you lose it, I'll give it to you again, but like it's really freeing to understand that people can't be controlled, even though people try, they can't. And um and to be, and just like you said, here's this thing, you are your own person, do whatever you want to with it, but at least here it is, you know. So
Yeah, I really like that. So it's a hard turn, but I kind of want to go into your career then, your business, and what you do,
yes,
both Web3 and pre-Web3.
yes,
So just to rewind a bit, you mentioned how you've been doing design and visual design for a long time, and I
yes,
know you ended up more recently jumping out on your own. So
yes.
what did it look like around that time? Maybe 3-4 years ago, or whenever you
Yeah.
started to get that spark that, hey, I'm gonna
Yes.
take this
Yes.
leap.
Yeah. So I had been working at, it was actually a church, but I had been working as a visual designer for almost 7 years at this place. And it was, when I talk about people in my field, the place that I worked was likened to a large agency, very fast paced, quick turnarounds, things like that. So the positive things that came out of that were I learned how to work really fast, really well, crank out, now again, I'm very quality driven. So like some of the stuff I let go as finished, I was like, this is not really finished. Like we could do better. But for time frames, stuff like that. And so you learn a lot of positive things about working fast, working with a lot of different programs and skills, working with a lot of different people. So you learn, like, I know what it's like, even though I probably could hold a camera, have held a camera, but I probably could hold a camera and things like that. I wouldn't consider myself, for quality's sake, a videographer or anything like that. But I know the type of work that goes into it. I know what it's like to film something for 10 minutes and then have to post for 2 days, like stuff like that. And so those are positive. So I really enjoyed it. I love what I do. Like it's one of those things, like it's like I said, I started learning how to do it in '07 and professionally started. It's muddy at this point. I think I just say 10 plus years. It could be longer. I don't remember at this
Mhm.
point, but like and so I've done visual design for a long time. But I had been at this place for a long time, loved what I did, but it's one of those things where the my direct report and my team that I'd been with for a long time, they all left. And so everything started to change. And, sometimes my wife sees the writing on the wall before I did, because I'm very much nope, I'm driven, I'm resilient, elbow grease, let's get in there, and let's just, hard work is something I'm not afraid of, right? And so I'm willing to just grind it out sometimes at the expense of my health. And so I had been at it for so long and I had some experiences that weren't awesome. And my wife was like, maybe it's time to think about something else. And I was like, nah, like I'm going back in, like I'm fine. It's going to be fun. And I got to the end of that, actually being at a church. Like I think professional role does this too, but that it was called sabbatical. So like I'd been working there for so long, I was able to take a month off of work.
Nice.
And so during that month, by the time I was able to like rest and calm down and like my mind like get away from working so much, I was like, you know what? My wife's always right, but it's like, you know what? You're right. And so maybe I should. And so at the end of 2020, I decided to leave and go out on my own, which was terrifying and wonderful all at the same time. But I had been doing it for so long. The thing that was wonderful, and going back to what I referred to earlier, I had such good health and confidence in myself that and this was the time where I really started to, like, you asked like when was that? Maybe this was a transition time, really started to like all that kind of formation that I had done started to like solidify. And I really thought, oh yeah, I can do this. And then you talk about a boost of confidence. So I have a high standard for quality, high, high, high. And I get into the professional world and my standard for quality is not what theirs is. And I'm thinking, wait, you're going to pay me what to do that? Let's ride. Let's rock and roll,
Uh-huh.
And so like And then you know how it goes where it's like, you do something amazing and people are like, holy crap, this is good. It's like, this is nothing. You should see what I could really do,
Mhm.
And so like, and that sounds, forgive the hubris of that, but it's true. And so, so 2 years ago, started out my own business, and the first year, last year actually was the first full year, 2021. Yeah. And it was amazing. Met amazing people, made more money than I'd ever made in my life, like just had an incredible time. And so it was just like super fun. And so year two's been a little tougher because I was laughing. I've given more free work away than I ever have in my life this year. And then I got involved with a Web3 project, which is eating up a lot of time. So that was risk. I understood the risk, but still loving it and things like that. So I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Oh yeah, and I actually wanted to dive in then when you took that leap. So you ended up better off on the other side. But what were those first steps like? How did you find your first customers, clients, partners, however you looked at them?
Yes. Yeah. Truthfully, it's as cheesy as it can be, but it's the old saying, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And so I have a friend of mine, and nobody knows who he is because he's not on social media, but you've probably seen his work. He's one of those people. He's one of the best designers on the planet. Sweet, amazing guy, but his work is like bar none. And so I had him as a friend. He's one of my best friends. Had him as a connection, and I have been in the area and in my field for so long and made connections throughout the years, for the past, I don't know what's 15 years, 07, golly. So for the past 15 years, been able to make connections along the way. And the other thing is too, is that when you're kind, people remember you. And so, at the beginning, my work was not that good, but I was a kind person. So people it's like, what's the saying? It's like, people remember how they felt when they're around you or when they leave you,
Mm-hmm.
And so that was good for me because that's just naturally who I am. But it was good for me when I do something like this and step out on my own and I say, hey, I just started my own thing. Like, let me know if you have come in contact with anyone who needs help. And so that's basically what I did. I just started basically shaking trees and just saying, hey, I started on my own. Here's my information. Here's my social. Here's my site, things like that. And have up until this point, that's how I've gotten work. So I got hooked up with a couple of agencies who are constantly feeding me work, and like different friends and local businesses and things like that. And so that was fun. That was fun for me. And so
yeah. And I like to take that. It's not who you know, it's what you know. It's who you know and what you know. Is how I like to look at it, because if you didn't have the talent,
that's true.
There's that extra piece that it's like, well, we can't send them the work, but we love them, like, so it's like, I always like to say that it's both. It's just this like synergy that goes together because it's so important.
That's true.
Yeah,
very true.
Like no matter how good you are, if no one knows who you are, you're not going to be able to sort of have those connections and dive in. So yeah, but that's awesome. Like, so basically all word of mouth, everything just going through the network that you've built up. You've found people who know you, like you, and trust you. It's it. That's exactly. Like the trifecta of what you want, and people like you. So it's so valuable. And I think people can forget that it's not like a zero-sum game. It's not I win, you lose. It's how do we win? And then as soon as you're doing that, people leave feeling better, like you said.
That's right.
Like it's not necessarily, I think it's something along the lines of it's not what the words you say, but how you make someone feel. And it's so important, and something worth sort of sticking a pin in for people. Like there's such a valuable approach to how you do what you do.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so right now I'm kind of blessed with that. Like, I know I'm not supposed to say this as someone who's in the marketing world, but I can't stand social media. I can't stand it. And so like, I'm good at helping you build your thing. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do anything with mine.
So I completely relate to that, because like our company is called SPYR. We've been doing this for a long time, like brand and design and everything. And like I'll get the strategy down for you, whoever you is. But it's like up until Web3, I was just invisible. Like this podcast really. So before Web3, it was 2020 when I started this show, started talking to entrepreneurs, and then with some of like I've done other shows and things with partners that we have sort of within our company to help help them grow and things. So now I'm a little more front facing, but we were behind the scenes for 11 years. I don't know, like a long time, like never, just because it wasn't word of mouth. Word of mouth is everything. So it's like we didn't need to be front and center. True. But then you get to that point where you're like, but it would be nice if we had something that was ours, sort of like sort of more broadly ours, and not just building behind the scenes. So I totally relate to it. Web3 I've found more fun, like in like Twitter specifically. Well, true. I need to preface that my version of Twitter, I know there is nasty Twitter, but I'm always like, if you're putting that nastiness out there, if you're seeking it, if you're engaging with it, the algorithm, it escalates that, because the algorithm's like, this is what you want. I don't interact with any of that stuff. I don't see any of it. So people are like, do you see all the drama about this? I'm like, no, I have no idea what the bad stuff is.
Great.
But so I can totally relate to on the social side of things. So how then did you find yourself sort of not transitioning, but bolting on Web3 with so your project now? If you want to sort of maybe talk about that just a little bit, and that transition into launching your project.
So the thing that I saw, so I helped someone, and I don't even think I'm allowed to say yet, but I helped someone build on another chain. It's not Ethereum, it's another chain, but I helped someone. They contacted me and said, hey, will you help us build out the UI UX of a NFT platform? And so kind of like OpenSea or whatever. And so I said, yeah, sure, that's great. And so a month, as I'm working with these people for a month, they're just like filling me in on all this stuff. And so this was January of this year. And I'm like, really? Like, this is fascinating. And so like that happened in January. By the end of February, we had hit the ground running with our own project. And the reason is because I saw, so for me, being in marketing and visual design, I saw immediately that this is the future. Like, this is the future of marketing. This is the future of where things are going. And I knew, I was like, and this is amazing. And the thing that was exciting about it is that my wife is 6 minutes. Yes. The thing that was exciting about it is being someone who's creative, who admires quality, and barely missed the .com era. And to have people like Steve Jobs that I admire, or stuff like that, I think, man, wouldn't it be awesome to like get in early on something like that? Not even thinking about how hard it's going to be, but just like, yeah, wouldn't it be awesome to get in, And so when I found out, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the opportunity. I'm going to be early. I have the skills. I'm old enough to like recognize it and appreciate it and like work in it. And so I started our project. I started working on our project and gathering a team, while at the same time just watching and learning, getting into communities. Discord wasn't unfamiliar for me because I come from the gaming community. And so like I knew Discord as a gaming community platform, but then I thought, oh, Web3 uses this? Like, oh yeah, I know Discord, it's great, so jump right in that. That's easy. Twitter I hadn't used in years because I was on Instagram, because that's what you do when you're a designer. You use Instagram. And so I hopped back into Twitter and cleaned all my Twitter stuff up and kind of started getting into the different communities and different things like that. And so all the while watching, learning, seeing how projects do things, listening to people, things like that. And as I'm taking on information, we're forming our project based around, because I'm a problem solver. So I'm not a puff project guy. I'm not coming in just to make money. Like, who cares? I can go make money doing what I do. It's like, I'm not trying to come in and get rich. Like, I want to come in and like bring value into the community. That's what drives me. Like, money's never driven me. And I'm very blessed to be able to say that. Like, I grew up really poor, and still being at this place, money's never like been a driver. And so like, it helps, because if money's not your driver, then money can't break you either. And so like, it helps when you're creative and things like that. When you're making money is good, taking care of your family is good, but when it's not your number one goal, it's also is not the thing that trips you up. And so I don't want to come in just to get rich, even though like some of the numbers you're like, holy crap, like we do this, like that's pretty amazing if it works. But at the same time, it's like, all right, I want to come in and I want to solve problems and I want to better the community and I want to establish something that brings long-term value to this coming market. And so that's what we started doing. And I would, I'll answer questions if you as deep as you want to go into the project. But that's what got me into it, basically seeing the future of it. And the friends that I've made over the years, I can't speak highly enough. The friends that I have in their field, top tier, like best of the best. But they're also have done things through networking. Nobody knows who they are, but they're literally the best. So in 2016, I think it was. 2016, I think it was. We went to Chicago, and I love Chicago, by the way. Went to Chicago, and it's true. It's one of my favorite cities to visit.
But also, it's okay if you didn't. Just because I'm here, it doesn't matter.
if you don't, it's okay. But I'm just saying, I do. I love it. But we went to Chicago for the brand new conference. Now, this is one of like the premier conferences for the design world. And we went there, and I'm sitting in that conference, and this is the moment I realized, okay, I'm on level playing ground with everyone here, everyone on stage, everyone I'm talking to, like things like that. And that was really revelatory for me, realizing that I'm not just some whatever who's not good, like everything. And it was really a confident booster. But what it did for me was open my eyes to realize we can hang. Like we can hang in this industry. And so since then, so fast forward to this, anybody that I've known, as well as myself, all we've done is grow and get better. And so when I'm thinking I want to do a project, I'm thinking who are awesome people to work with, who are not drama, who are the best at what they do. And so I was just blessed to have those type of people around me. And so I just started pitching them this idea, like, hey, here's a possibility. Would you like to get involved? And so that's kind of how it all started.
So, and part of it is the Web 2 to Web 3 sort of brand, that bridge. Could you explain that a little bit and sort of what your vision is for it?
Yes. So again, bringing real value into the space. One of the things that I heard the whole community whining about was utility. Yeah, sure, this NFT like costs whatever, but what do I get? Right? That's everybody's. The intrinsic value, right? And nothing like, the thing that I find funny, things don't really work that way in the real world. Like you don't go buy a new pair of shoes and go, well, yeah, but what do I get when I buy this new pair of shoes other than your feet being protected and it looking, you looking pretty fly, it's like, that's not how anything works. But in the Web3, like this is like this running thing. And it's like, okay, like it doesn't really work that way, but I hear what you're saying. So how do we solve this? And the thing that I saw was that what if we just, again, this is kind of my knack. What if we took people who were phenomenal at what they did and just brought them into this space and called it utility, right? It's like attached it to the token and let's just start knocking on doors. So we got a ton of no's, right? We got like, and you know how it goes. If you're not famous or you're not rich or whatever, people are like, who are you? Get out of my way, And so, but, what does it hurt? A no, that's it, whatever, shoot your shot. So we knocked on a lot of doors, asked a lot of businesses, things like that. And, but the thing that I wanted to do was be like, all right, well, let's just bring this business in, call it utility and answer everybody's problems, right? Or solve everybody, like at least this one problem of like, why does my NFT not have intrinsic value? And it's like, well, that's easy. And so on the branding side, as we started kicking around this idea, I thought, well, let's just be that as a brand. Let's build 3 layers to this project. And the brand thing, which is like the world I live in, I'm really good at like building brand stuff like that. The brand side of it, let's be a bridge for businesses. Anybody who wants to get into Web3, because here's what I saw too. I saw businesses trying to get in and coming in thinking that their clout or their name was going to make for a good project, and it just get decimated. Like either like it didn't do anything, or people just flipped it and moved on, right? And so I thought, well, okay, well, if that's not going to work for Nike, then we got to do something different. Like if it's not going to work for those companies, then it's got to be something different. So we looked at a lot of different things on how to do that. And so one of the things I saw was making sure that the companies coming in, that we did all the heavy lifting, knowing the community coming in. And I just wanted to go to communities and say, just do what you're good at. And that's all you need to worry about. And we'll get you into this space kind of thing. And especially with who we are, again, we're like nobody. And so I wanted the risk to be very low, like their risk. I wanted the risk to be low and the reward to be potentially super high. And so it made it easier for companies to say yes when we started to kind of like pitch it that way.
Yeah. So it's funny because we come from such different worlds and mindsets. It's the same thing, like take everything off of their plate. Like all of our partners, that's the thing. We make it as easy as possible. And it's like soup to nuts. You do your thing, we do our thing. That's it. So it's like we're so on the same wavelength here that it's really fascinating. So what does the actual partnership then look like so far with the brands you worked with?
Yeah. So for our first collection, which we just revealed, I don't know when this will go out, but we revealed yesterday. And so, well, that's a fun story in itself. But when I pitched it to them, I said, hey, the future of marketing is NFTs. And these two people wanted to get into Web3. They're not really Web3 savvy, but they knew about it enough to know, yes, you're right. This is the future. This is where it's heading. And so we would like to get in early. And so it's like, great, well, let us help you do that. And so what I told them, I said, basically, the pitch was, hey, you're incredible at your product, like who you are. And so and one of the things I wanted universal products, and I wanted them to be able to ship worldwide. And so most everybody loves coffee, and most everybody loves a good like plushie or a collectible, something like that, right? And so with these two partners, the things I just told them, I said, all I want from you is a good discount, like a higher discount than what you give in your emails, and then potentially rewards that we can use as claimables. And I let them name the price. You tell me how much you want to give, because again, low risk, whatever. And then we'll go from there. And so they agreed to that. And so then the coffee people come back and say, well, let's give you your own roast. You can name it. And then here's, we want to create packages for the claimable. So like they started getting into it. Right. And so it's like, it's very low, like I think the entry point is for them was like $1,000 maybe, or whatever, like from some of the stuff they were giving, and they're the ones who produce the product. So maybe more versus like time and work, stuff like that. But let's just say the entry point was between, $1,500 and $3,000. But then the potential reward is going to be six figures, maybe, And so it's easy to go to a company and say, could be nothing, but it could be this, and here's what we like to do, but we're going to take your company and we're going to, to use a Web3 term, we're going to shill you appropriately to all of Web3. Every person, we're going to talk about how good your product is and all this kind of stuff. And so not only is it going to be our project, potentially 3,000 holders, but then it's also going to be apes and birds and goblins and penguins. And, it's going to be the whole zoo, right? It's going to be everybody. and they're like, okay, yeah. And we wanted to do that because people have been kind to me in my life. I love helping people. So it's like, if you're hardworking and this is what you're doing and you're good at your craft, it's like, well, of course. In the same way I told you about Chase Lawrence and his wife and their artistry, it's like, I don't have to tell you about them, but they're so good at what they do. You got to know about them. They're amazing, And so in the same way, we wanted people who had really good products and wanted to get in the space, so that it was easy for us to get behind their products and say, you love coffee, these guys are some of the best. Like if you like order a bag, trust me, like you'll believe me after you taste it. And so it's like really easy. And so
Nice.
those are kind of the partners that we're looking for.
Yeah, and now are you shooting to hit certain metrics with these relationships? Are they expecting anything, or is it mostly because you mentioned it's low risk on their part? So sort of
Yeah.
how are you looking at
Yeah.
that?
No, like for me, my goal personally, now this wasn't like a in the agreement type of thing. My goal personally is to bring them enough business from the community that they remember what it's like to deal with us and how good it was, right? So all of this, so the thing about this project is a proof of concept. And so that's the third layer of this whole project is a proof of concept. We wanted to test two things. One, is the community really ready for what they're whining for? And two, um, can we accomplish what we know the market is going to become, but can we get in early and do it now? And so those are that, and that was the risk. That's the test. That's the let's get in and get our hands dirty and see if we can kind of prove that this can happen. And so that's where we are right now. We just minted and we're just launched. And so we're like literally in the phase of starting to tell people about the partners and getting into the the space where the community is like, all right, I've heard you for 6 to 8 months talk about you want utilities, we want utilities, where's our utilities? And I've heard countless more hours than I probably should have spent time in spaces listening to people complain about apes and complain about moonbirds and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, here's this thing, do you want it? And so we're kind of, that's where we are right now with the proof of concept.
Nice. And what would you say are the next steps, or maybe what are the hurdles that you see in front of you from where you're at this moment?
Yes. The biggest hurdle that I see right now for me, it's not hard. I think for everyone looking in at us, it's hard for them to comprehend. But I'm someone who I'm going to do it right or I'm not going to do it at all. And so what's hard for people on the outside looking into grasp because we haven't minted out yet. And like if you don't mint out in 30 minutes, people freak. And it's like calm down, like chill out, you know? And so like because everyone's so used to this like flip, mint out, flip, and move on, when you introduce a project into the space, and James is actually I learned a lot from him because that they're kind of going through the same thing. When you introduce a project that's real value, long lasting, and has like a long-term goal, the space right now doesn't really know what to do with it because they're very short-sighted and they're it's very goldfish mentality. It is one thing and then the next thing and then this thing and the next thing. And so the difficult thing for people to realize is that, and this is kind of taboo, but this is how things are going. But we didn't buy bot followers on Twitter. We didn't buy bot followers on Discord. We didn't do the whole buy the robot or the bot promoters and things like that to make it look like we were huge and we had this whatever. And people just couldn't like, what? Why are why are you not doing that? And so like that's been one of the biggest hurdles is to come in and do it legit and do it right. But here's the reason why our proof of concept, we need real people behind the usernames that are going to enjoy the real utilities that we're bringing in. It doesn't do our proof of concept. Like we fail our proof of concept if we mint out with a bunch of like we use bots, we mint out, people flip it and they move on, and there's nobody left to use the product to bring benefit to the businesses that we're trying to bring in. So therefore we can't say that we're a bridge for Web 2, Web 3 if we're still only concerned with what everyone else is concerned with right now, because it doesn't work that way. And so that's been the biggest hurdle I would say right now is getting people's minds to shift towards where the long-term goal. And I would say truthfully, being at this place in the project, we're probably about 2 years too early.
So thinking of it that way, Does that change your approach at all?
It's tempting to, for the sake of being able to say, here you go, partner, here's a lump sum of ETH that we knew we could get, but good luck. It's tempting to do that. But at the end of the day, like I said before, money's not everything. It's not the be all end all. The be all end all would be for these companies to be known as the coffee and plushie brand in the Web3 world. And so anytime an event happened, or someone wanted coffee, or someone wanted to partner with a coffee thing, or a podcast wanted to sponsor or something like that, guess who they call? They call Methodical. Mm-hmm. And so like that, but that's a long-term goal. And that's and my favorite part about my work and what I like to do, I love the prove it stage. I love being able to say, this is what we can do. Let me show you. Let's prove it to you, Mm-hmm. And so again, that's why we kind of added that layer of proof of concept to our business. Is like, listen, we got to prove this, because people don't care until they do. And so, but eventually, and here's the funny thing, this makes me laugh, and this is what gives me a lot of hope, outside of my team being astronomically phenomenal, is anytime I talk to somebody about it, they're on board. They love it. They're about it, Uh-huh. So it's like, I know, because it's amazing, but we just got to get in front of people the traditional way, which is not. People are used to very quick, they want to go to your account, see that you have 100,000 followers, and they think, oh, you're somebody. But the reality is those are, by and large, those aren't real people behind those accounts. And so, like, if we were a PFP project like anybody else, that would be fine. Those things would be fine. But we need real people. And like, here's the thing that's astonishing that I'm watching this week is, in Ethereum, on the Ethereum blockchain, there's only 160,000 active wallets. And so, and those aren't 160,000 unique people. Yeah. Those are just active wallets. And so, like, if everyone had 3 or 4 wallets like I do, which some people have more, I would assume there's probably maybe 100,000 unique active people, maybe 120 on the high end active people, like in the space, maybe less. I don't know. And so I don't know what 4 divided by 160 is. What would it be? 400? Like, that can't be right. That's too low, right? And so, no, or 4,000, 4,000, 400.
Wait, 4, we're at 160, so 40?
Yeah. 4 divided by 160,000.
Or what? Either way, yeah, it's not that many people.
yeah. Math, not our strong suit. Edit this out. They're kidding. So that's fascinating to me, because that means all these accounts who have 170 plus thousand followers, mm-hmm. like, I'm starting to watch them and go, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Who are all these people?
But the other thing too, and this to be true, you pop into a Discord or you get into a community, and 50 to max 100 people are talking, mm-hmm. and they're the ones holding the community together. Now the other people are there, holders are there, and you'll see like fringe people like pop in every now and then, like a space or something like that. But by and large, majority of the active people, it's the 80-20 concept, right? The 20% are sustaining the 80, or sustaining most of it. And so we're kind of not intentionally, but unintentionally exposing that with our project, because people are kind of, it unnerves people. They're like, this project's so amazing. Like, why don't people know about it? Like, why don't you have more followers? Why don't you? And it's like, do you really want to know? Or do you, Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. So I guess, are there any, maybe flag posts you're trying to hit in the near to mid future?
Yeah. Yes. So we are right now. So we just revealed the actual. So we told a story with our mint. So we took 2 weeks and told the story, a snapshot story about how the Clubbie Bears arrived on Earth. And so then yesterday was like the grand reveal. Everybody got to see their Clubbie Bear and everybody's geeking out. It was a fun day. And so since we've hit this mark, for the next few months, our goal is to get more exposure, get in front of more people, and then, like, it would be nice, for the sake of the metric of the community, Now, not for what we want. We can do what we're going to do no matter what. But for the metric of the community, it would be nice to mint out, because that means something to the community, even though we're like, it is what it is with us, but it's like to the community, it means something. So it'd be nice to get that metric down and have that established. And then during that time, we're just going to kind of let things breathe, and we're going to push our partners in spaces behind closed doors. Like, there's events coming up, and there's people need sponsors and things like that. And so we're going to start having a lot of conversations with people saying, hey, like the morning shows, hey, do you need a coffee sponsor? Like, we know somebody. And also the coffee people, they want to get into events. Well, there's a lot of Web3 events coming up this year, but next year definitely. So, and next year's when people are planning and things like that. So it's like, hey, do you need coffee at your event? And, custom plushies. I was talking to someone, and they were like, yeah, I would love a custom plushie of mine, whatever. It's like, here's your people, like, go for it, And so that's our next phase. And then on top of that, we're building out more of the universe of the Clubbie Bears themselves, and thinking about, so the way that we built it, what other new partners come in, we can either build collections around them, traits around them. Like we built a very nimble brand and like character that we can kind of do anything. So like, this is a little bit alpha. And so if we do this, this will be on your podcast first, but one of the things that we can do, like, let's say we got a food like company, and Clubbie Bears are from a different universe, different planet. They've been on Earth for a while, and they're enjoying the food with their celestial honey. But let's say the food like changed their body. So we can make another collection, taller, wider, whatever, have superpowers, things like that, and attach it to a partner that says your utility is going to be a discount or a free product or both or whatever with this. And it's like, yo, I got the Doritos, Clubbies, things like that. And so like, we can do stuff, like we can do anything with our brand like that. And so we'll probably work behind the scenes as we're engaging the community, probably for a month to the next 2 months, probably the end of the year. And because we're still, every day I potentially make a new relationship or a new connection, right? Web3 is crazy. And so, and I know those open doors, as everything else has come along, those open doors will give us, lead into other things and potential things that we can build and do. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, and hopefully this helps at least connect with a few more people, getting eyes on the project and everything, and you and like your story and everything all together. So where should we send people to follow along and check out everything you're up to?
Yes. At Clubbie Bear, IECLUBBIE, and misspelled it intentionally. Clubbie Bear on Twitter, and we have clubbiebear.com. And then as we're talking right now, there's still plenty to mint. And so it's mint.clubbiebear.com. And so as far as the project goes, that would be where I'd send people and things like that.
Perfect. And yeah, do you want people to follow along at NormtheUnicorn as well?
Sure, if they want to.
Okay. Yeah.
I just changed it to @theUnicornNorm because.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Norm the Unicorn is taken.
Gotcha.
Breaks my heart.
Where did Norm come from?
Okay, so I love the story. So in the gaming world, I had my gamer tag at the time, and this was before I felt comfortable with like people knowing who I was. And but it was before I went on my own and my face became my brand for my company, And so before that, I was like, I don't know if I want people knowing who I am. And my current gamer tag was like way too close to my like real name. And so I thought, okay, let's change it. And so I'm a coffee snob. My wife and I love like mugs. So like, different types of mugs. Anytime we went somewhere, we bought a mug and things like that. And so we were walking around downtown at a place we were at, and we went into this pottery shop. It was like hand spun, handmade, all this kind of stuff. And we love art and things like that. And we were in there, and in the shop was a unicorn mug. So like the base of the mug is the body, the head, like it had a head, and then the handle was the tail. And so it was just like this awesome thing. And so I named it Norm the Unicorn, and people loved it. And it's one of my favorite mugs, things like that. So when I was thinking about what can I change my gamer tag to, I was like, I'll just name it Norm the Unicorn. And it just took off. People just loved it. It's like one of those accidental things you do. You're like, oh, well, thanks. It's like people are like, oh, Norm, I love that Norm the Unicorn, And so then, fast forward, 5 years, it's like, it's just stuck. It's just it, So
Well, yeah, it's very brandable. It feels like a brand in itself. It's your mascot of sorts.
Yes. But because of that, I also named my company Unicorn Creative.
Uh-huh.
And that has a bunch of different connotations, like unicorn is like what Silicon Valley uses, billion-dollar startups, different things like that. So like a little bit of subliminal things there, but like, yeah. That's part of it.
Yeah, definitely. I like it. But yeah, thanks so much for all your time. And diving into the personality types and that journey as well, I think is hugely valuable. And that's something that I really get to touch on the show. And I think that is, I think people really connect with that part of your story, especially. And like, I'm really glad to be able to share it, because that's a journey that is worth pursuing for yourself and for everyone around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's super
valuable. Because, you're the common denominator, you live with yourself forever. And so I think it's important to I encourage people all the time. Your biggest investment is the health of your head, heart, and mind. And so like that is very, very important to have and carry. And truthfully, it makes life so much better, because until you start thinking about it, you don't realize that like when you get triggered or when you get upset or you do, like, you have these reactions, and until you stop and think, why am I doing this? You don't think about it. But when you start stopping and think about, or let's say this is usually what happens, you have someone in your life that you care about enough that you let them say, why do you do this? And you go, do what? And they go, why do you, when you get mad, you throw a mug every time. You're like, no, I don't. It's like, yes, go look in the cabinet. We're a lot less mug. Our mug inventory is decreasing. And so you're like, oh my gosh, I throw mugs. I didn't even realize I did that. And so it's important to like get to those spaces to be able to confront yourself. And let's be honest, it's really nice to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and the person that's looking back at you go, I like you. I like you. And so, and sadly, I don't think there's enough people in the world that can do that. And so I like, just at the end of the day, I like being hope. If I could do it, anybody can do it. It's possible for anybody. If I can do it, you can definitely do it.
I want to thank Joel for joining me on this episode. To follow along and check out his project and his brand partnerships, you can go to clubbiebears.com or Clubbie Bears on Twitter. So yeah, the beginning of that. Are you yawning? Not cutting the camera over because you're yawning at my outro.
You caught me at a weird time, man. I'm hungry. Yeah.
No, but threw me off there. I didn't
Sorry.
expect to see you yawning. But I liked how you're in control of the camera, so you're just like, I'm not gonna cut it yet. But no, that was good. I loved like that beginning specifically. Like, it's a topic that like means a lot to me and you. And
when
like,
he said Enneagram type, I was like, oh, I totally did that, and I don't remember. I might be a 1. I have no idea.
Well, yeah,
you would definitely. I think you would be a 1, but I actually don't remember now. I've done so many of those personalities.
No, I don't. Just like calling me a 1. Come on. No.
Out of a 1, you're a 1.
Yes.
1 out of 1.
But yeah, I'm really glad we got to touch on that.
1 of 1.
And
you're an NFT.
there you go. But yeah, I think we'll just wrap there. Thank you again for listening. And yeah, I guess we will just not too loud.
I have the power.
No, I know. But thanks again for tuning in, subscribing, sharing, liking, doing whatever you do. But thank you so much, and we will see you next time.